And really the purpose of this is to give a bit of overview of some of the stuff that we've been working on or thinking about working on, and open invitation to become part of it, or bring in other people who would like to be part of it as well. So with that, Jeff has done a fantastic job, and he ran the webinar this morning. So I'm going to hand over to him to give these overview. We definitely will be done by 6. And I think, Jeff, you said this morning it was about a 21-minute sort of slide presentation. So we definitely have room for questions. A lot of it we may not have answers to. So this is just sort of some, as I said, some early thinking, and brought on partially by COVID-19, but also a bit of I would call it a bit of an escapism for COVID-19. So as well. So over to you, Jeff.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Liddy. So welcome to webinar number 2 of today. Before I begin, I'd just like to thank everybody for attending, and thank you to all of you first-line doctors who are currently dealing with the pandemic, being right out there, taking care of everybody, putting yourself and your family at risk. So once again, thank you very much. Your efforts and your long days are very much appreciated. As this pandemic has shown, we are definitely in a new normal situation right now, and delivering our curriculum has taken a new path for us. So some of the things that have come to light in this new world order has been, that has caused a little bit of a sleepless nights for certain individuals. And these are some of the things that we definitely want to make sure that we are aware of, and we want to find ways that maybe we could potentially help to alleviate some of these current issues or concerns. For example, how can the curriculum continue to be delivered most effectively from a remote standpoint? How can we get that sense of community and and maintain our good faculty development cohesion that we've had in the past? How do we still develop that team mentality and feeling that the social aspect of being in a classroom, having that one-on-one or in a group setting? How will the new cohorts coming in on July 1st, how will they operate? Does it have a need for different ways of working, or are we okay? What is the quality and quantity of the clerkship students going to be like, considering the past 3 months they've been working remotely or not working at all? And then, virtual care, when the new residents come on board and, you're utilizing them in a virtual patient visit and you've never actually met them. How can we bring some comfort to that and any other concerns that you may have? So at this point, these are some of the bigger concerns that we've come upon, but I'm sure those of you out there have other issues that you're aware of, and we would greatly appreciate it if you could forward those concerns along to us so we can definitely address them, make sure your voices are heard, and then come up with potential solutions to address some of these going forward. Now, some of these concerns have also led us into, an exploratory phase. So, as Dr. Liddy had alluded to, the pandemic has created a need to shift our thinking and our education to a more virtual online programming, and this does have an impact both at the undergraduate level, the postgraduate level, and even some of our continuing education. So what we did do is we did put our thinking caps on and said, before we could really address how to look at these different things, we need to do a preliminary needs assessment and a gap analysis. And try to determine what online or digital curriculum can we provide for events like Academic Day. What impacts has the COVID-19 and delivering curriculum and learning remotely had on the undergraduate program? And then, what is the literature out there say about teaching the traditional way of in classroom versus online or gamification of education? We're starting to see a lot more technology in certain fields being developed and used to actually deliver learning, and can that be leveraged and delivered in the medical space? So these are some of the things that we want to explore. And so our first project is to actually look at.
Maybe I'll jump in just to.
Sure.
Yeah, so the whole piece about the gamification, and then looking at some of the questions now that Jeff is going to get into as our preliminary start. When you look at the medical education curriculum as it pertains to family medicine, there's actually very little out there. And so that is the piece that I think is quite interesting from a big picture point of view, and an area that we have the potential, I think, there's a lot of folks who have already done and been working in that area within our faculty and within the Department of Family Medicine. So that is definitely an opportunity. And the City Ottawa was just sort of I think a brainstorming of the minds that, well, there's City and other things. And what if you could teach family medicine in that way, and, have people create your population and actually base it off sort of what we have here in Ottawa. And probably some of that was flavored by the fact that I just bought a Monopoly game, which was Ottawa based. So anyways, so that's just, again, sort of some of the, we have some very practical things I think that we need to address, such as, the academic day, which now we've already had our first sort of remote one, which which went very well. And then some, big picture, and I think some out of the box thinking that we could do as a department, and really looking, as I said, welcoming all ideas. And this is only a small group of people who have been sort of doing some brainstorming over virtual coffees. And this is kind of the opportunity now for all of you who have joined to be involved if you would like. So, okay, that's it. I'll hand over. It won't be 22 minutes if I keep talking.
That's all right. So, so our first project is to look at, what curriculum can actually be delivered electronically. What is the most convenient and the most effective curriculum? We just don't want to go and throw everything online, because some doesn't make sense, some is a little bit easier, and some is actually ideal for online delivery. So what we want to do is start investigating, and have a goal of, potentially moving 25% of our current academic teaching online. This could also look at, maybe there are subject matters that we don't currently teach because the curriculum is full. If for those of you who were at the retreat in January, some of the topics that did come up that are becoming a little bit more prevalent are, First Nations medicine. Mental health is a huge thing in the media even today, with everybody being isolated. Francophony issues, and then other specialty subjects are out there that right now we don't have the room in a curriculum to really squeeze in there. But if we had some of these things, some of these topics covered in an online module that a resident could actually learn on their free time, that just enhances their ability, their skills, and their knowledge for their patient base. Next slide, please, Louise. So one of the ways you can look at delivering some of this content is through a product called Life, and it's a virtual reality type product. So, you could actually look at how to, in this case, deliver a baby effectively. So there are a multitude of capabilities out there that we're looking at, augmented reality, virtual reality, or, the traditional online delivery of slides with voiceover. So a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different potential, but these are some of the things that we will be looking at in the coming months. Next slide, please, Louise. Next, project number 2. So as we proceed through our gap analysis, there's one thing we definitely don't want to do is do work that has already been done. So what we want to do is do a wide spectrum analysis of, what has COVID-19 done on the education program across Canada, and then look at, different things of online, national surveys. How are other schools and other provinces dealing with this pandemic? How are the other 16 medical schools across Canada dealing with the move towards online curriculum? Understanding that certain schools and certain programs are either shorter or longer than ours. So taking those nuances in there, but are there ways that we can look at partnering with other schools to improve some of the curriculum delivery without having to do all the work ourselves? So as you can see across Canada, those are 17 schools, and so there's lots of opportunities and lots of geographic diversity as well that we can leverage as well from different standpoints or perspectives. Next slide, please, Louise. The third one is a systematic review of the literature of gamification. So as we mentioned at the beginning, gamification is, you know, a big thing that's up and coming in certain aspects of education. You look at a lot of kids that are entering school are learning not by, you know, reciting their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. They're actually being educated through the dynamics of games. So what we want to look at is what does the literature say about the use of games and gamification as it relates to medical education? What are the tools out there? What are the games out there? How do we create a serious subject matter, but in a fun way of learning? So we're going to continue to explore that. We've looked at certain companies out there, certain tools. There are some applications out there that are very intuitive, very high resolution and definitive. However, as Dr. Liddy alluded to at the beginning, there is nothing out there right now that is specific to family medicine. So it is pretty much an untapped market for us to work in. However, the baseline infrastructure of creating those applications, creating those games is already there. We just need to then add our own subject matter to those applications. So half the work is already done. Next slide, please, Louise. So when you look at some of the subjects out there, Queen's University, just down in Kingston, is actually leveraging and using virtual reality in their Faculty of Medicine right now. They are in the process of building an 8,000 square foot virtual reality training center. We've already reached out to them. We've already spoken with them. They're very keen to explore partnering with us, and they're very interested in teaching us their lessons learned so we don't make the same mistakes. So there's a lot of possibilities of using VR or augmented reality in the education of medicine. Next slide, please, Louise. Other ways of teaching could be virtual simulation, so computer programs that simulate a doctor visit. So you have a patient, as you can see, it's sitting there, and you then take the patient's history, you take the symptomology, render a diagnosis, and you get scored through that. So there are multiple avenues we can learn at how to use gamification and virtual reality or augmented reality or simulation to continue the curriculum through both in class and offline as well. So next slide,
maybe,
please,
Jeff, I'll just jump in to give a little bit more context. You know, why do we have these projects already sort of 1, 2, 3, and then there is because what we decided to do as a department was actually, and Lena Shopoff, who's our amazing undergraduate director and has sort of a really great and works with all of the undergraduate medical students, we realized there was an opportunity to tap in to the medical students who, many of whom didn't end up getting employed this summer, and also likewise for our University of Ottawa co-op students from various faculties. So we saw it as an opportunity to create some student opportunities, and many of whom have now sort of started this week or will be coming on in the next couple of weeks, and work a little bit and do some of the thinking and the work on this. So for example, the systematic review on gamification is a really nice discrete project. We'll at least get the start of it so we can get a lay of the landscape. The environmental scan across Canada, that's another one that's very focused on the undergraduate medical students, and it's highly relevant. So just that kind of prompted some of the really quick thinking on this. And then very aware also that University of Ottawa, Department of Innovation and Medical Education, that, you know, there are a lot of people already locally who are doing work on that, and the intent is to connect in with all of that, with all of those folks as well. But first we wanted to essentially put the word out there to our own department, and then, as I said, lots of opportunity to come up with your own questions, and many of you have been in conversations before, so this is just sort of a snapshot of some of the things, and Jeff has done a great job at looking at the landscape just as an initial start. So back over to you, Jeff.
All right, thank you. And here's another interesting story. Actually, Dr. Liddy and I just got off a conversation with the team at Talus in Montreal and Quebec City, who actually partnered up with the University of Laval and the Canadian Space Agency to create or develop co-develop what they, in essence, called a doctor in a box. So they took basically 100 of the most prevalent diseases or accidents that could impact an astronaut who will be taking part in the future Mars mission, and giving them a doctor that could actually help them render a diagnosis instead of having to communicate with a doctor back on Earth that has a 22-minute time delay between communications. So they looked at creating something that could actually help them, give them information on the spot for 100 different scenarios, and they continue to evolve this scenario, this package as they speak for the future Mars program, should that come to be in the next few years. So we've looked across the landscape, and so then we go, well, what is Ottawa doing? Right now, Ottawa does have what they call the Tinkering Lab. So on main campus, they do actually have a very large lab, and they do actually have a course on how to apply technology and virtual reality to certain curriculum. However, we're not really leveraging that, so we want to look at benefiting from these technologies in the delivery of our curriculum here at the Faculty of Medicine and Department of Family Medicine. Next slide, please, Louise. And our last major project, which is a long-term goal, is, as Dr. Lydia alluded to at the beginning, is City Ottawa. So for those of you who are familiar with the computer game SimCity, where you go and build up your city over time, we were looking at something a little bit similar to that, where instead of building the city, you're actually building your practice. So you would be the new doctor in the virtual SimCity of Ottawa, and you are in charge of now taking care of the residents of that city. So you would have patients come into your new family practice with issues, and you would diagnose and render care. So these are some of the things that we are looking at doing. It is a much bigger endeavor. However, you know, it is something that is not outside of the scope of reason. We've looked at a couple different options, and one being right now a company down in the US called Level X. They've actually developed some high fidelity computer games already out there. However, they're focused more on specialty areas like cardiology and neurology, and having spoken with them, they would be very interested in looking at creating some applications for us that you can see on the next slide, please, Louise. So as you can see here, they've created some very high fidelity applications that not only can you play and practice, you could actually get CME credit for certain of the applications. So it's not outside of the realm of possibilities, but it is truly early stages as we learn and look into the different areas of innovation here at the department. Next slide, please, Louise. So this is kind of the area that we're looking at exploring. And some of you might be asked, well, how can you get involved? And it's very simple. Just ask to join one of the project teams. As Dr. Lydia alluded to, Dr. Lena Shopoff has started creating a couple different working groups with some medical students. We'll be building on those working groups. We'll be creating what we call a couple scrum teams. And those scrum teams will benefit from having some medical students, some medical residents. We will be bringing in some co-op software engineers to help maybe start developing some of these applications and tools. But if you find that you just don't have the time, but you would still like to have a say, or please send us your feedback. You may have some great experiences, some great feedback from your own personal experience of running your own practices or operating in a hospital that would be great to include. Feel free to communicate some of your ideas with other faculty members who might be on the team, or send an email to the chair. She'd be more than happy to take some feedback and incorporate it into our thought processes, our discussions as we move forward.
That's right. Yeah, in particular, the gaps, what are your needs? So some of this is very big picture, kind of, as I call it, out of the box thinking. Clearly, I've got my research hat on. We're going to try to get grants. We're going to get, do maybe some interesting longer term partnerships to develop some of that, like the SimCity Ottawa is not going to meet the immediate need of how do you actually, see your patients next week and teach a resident to use a telephone whom you've never met in person. So I don't want to be, we're not at all disconnected from those daily realities. It's really just, so what are the gaps, and could any of the early stuff, and even in terms of just the first thing we're looking at is the topics that could be, you know, more easily flipped onto online, that would be a need, that would be helpful. So what are the gaps, what would be helpful? And then if you want to get involved, or you're resident, or, you know, you're sort of, I don't want to be involved now, but maybe later, then just keep in mind that the idea is to create a bit of a program here. And I think there's an opportunity for our department to be a real leader in some of these. And Jeff has brought in some really interesting ideas, and also partnerships with industry, which we had not previously sort of pursued as a department. And I think that there is, again, potential there. So I guess that's it.
Yep.
Opening for questions. Yeah, here's our next step.
Next steps. As I alluded to, we're going to continue to build on the working groups. We're going to recruit some co-op students and project staff as needed. We're then going to proceed down the path of the needs assessment and gap analysis. That is where, you know, your feedback can be definitely beneficial to the teams, should you decide that, you know, you just want to have a say or have some input. And we also need to determine what else is being done in Ottawa or elsewhere across Canada. I'm a very big proponent that we don't want to reinvent the wheel that's already there. I just want to put better tires on it. So, you know, let's take what's out there and build on it with our, you know, our limited dollars. And then we're going to start storyboarding. We're going to start designing a proof of concept, and then begin development. So as we progress through these stages, we'll have more webinars in the future. So please stay tuned. And, you know, can you envision the future? Can we be delivering, you know, medical education through a tablet with virtual reality goggles? You know, only the future can tell. So at this point, you know, we'll welcome any questions, feedback, or ideas.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
All right. The floor is open. You can either unmute yourself, or you can put the chat in. And really interested in, if you're working locally in this area and have, like, we're very, especially for me, very naive and new to this area. So I don't want to forget anybody local who might, you know, we have some overlap, or, you know, this is not at all new thinking. You could be thinking to yourself, I want to know who those folks are. So, and again, just trying to get things going. So we're calling our summer, it's sort of like we're creating the sandbox to have a little bit of a play in it, while also trying to address some of the realities of you know, the curriculum is going online, and what are the things that we can do. Yeah, so Paris, I would like to ask a question. Absolutely. Do we need to unmute, or does Paris unmute herself?
Thank you. Thank you.
On peut prendre des questions en français aussi. Alors,
okay.
Yeah,
this is
not
so exciting. From somebody who's been trying to sell these ideas of teaching procedures online, it's a great opportunity. I have the question, Jeff, about, so actually when you look at the literature, Teresa Chan from McMaster and Eric Chappelle did a beautiful scoping review of crowdsourcing and these kind of online teaching. And the area, Claire, you're quite right in terms of where it's really rich for research opportunities is the assessment and long-term outcome. That's why we've all been so hesitant to adopt these things, because we don't have long-term outcome in terms of competence of physicians, patient outcome, etc. So the thing that has been always very difficult for me is, how can I incorporate assessment tools into these platforms? So I'm curious, what platform are we using, and does it have the capacity to incorporate, you know, pre-test, post-test assessment tools, and then long-term follow-ups so that we can demonstrate that in fact our residents didn't need more remediation, you know, or were able to pass their exam better, etc., etc. So I'm really curious in terms of researchability and scholarship work. How can we ensure we can put these built into the platform?
I think that you know, you raised some very good points, and I think there is a component of, you know, exactly is the assessment and the evaluation side, and then the actual teaching of the curriculum. And I think you do definitely want to have them linked, which right now we don't have any linkages per se. We have some very disparate systems that the post-grad team and under Kim Rosen uses today. They're all based on one massive SQL database that we could data mine at this point, but however, it doesn't have the connection to the actual curriculum. But it would be an interesting project that we could look at. We've got years and years and years worth of data in there that we could actually start to do the analytics. We are on a project as well, which is not part of this presentation, of replacing and updating some of our tool sets we use to deliver and manage our residents. So we are on a very big upgrade path, but yeah, we'll definitely look into something like that where we could draw the correlations between, you know, the teaching and the evaluation component side by side.
Yeah, thanks. And then we've got a comment and a question from Milene. I'd like to have the students' opinion about virtual teaching, although I'm all for it, like providing virtual care. It's personally finding it exhausting to be wired for a computer for long periods of time. How about the students? That's a great question. And I was saying, I agree with you. This is my last, hopefully, webinar started at 7:30 this morning. So it's long. The reality, I think, right now, or sort of the opportunity, is that we have to do this. So, you know, we have to put as much as we can online right now because of COVID-19. But I mean, that's a great question. And I think, again, from a student perspective, it would be something that we could be looking at. So.
And I think
I don't think the intention is not to replace, you know, and go completely to this. I think but there is a reality that you know, maybe some areas as we move forward, you would be better suited to this, or it could be actually a better way of teaching. We don't know. So those are sort of some of the questions.
And I think part of the thing as well is, yes, taking a course online that traditionally is a 3-hour lecture in a classroom, by taking a 3-hour course online, you always have the ability to hit that pause button, get up, walk around, come back to it 15 minutes later, versus a lecture that's not going to take a break just because you do. It does not track progress. So there are some benefits and detractors. I know myself as a teacher in the scuba diving realm, online has exploded. People don't want to sit in a classroom on a Saturday or Sunday listening to me drone on for 8 hours about dive theory, etc. They'd rather take it online and where they could actually go and revisit and review previous sections over and over again until they're comfortable. So there are benefits, there are detractors as well, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm aware of the time, so it is 6. So if anybody needs to sign off, please, you know, go ahead. But we'll stay on longer to continue the conversation for whoever would like to. So, yeah. So comment about it's amazing. How many of us could have used this for teaching ourselves to use OTN? Yeah, that's true. From Oliver, a comment about the additional topics like Indigenous health and Francophone. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that definitely I would agree that some of the topics could be challenging. It may not be suitable. Again, I think that there is what we're looking for as a start are what would be suitable. So as you are the teachers, what do you think would be suitable to actually, you know, put online? And then for other topics, you know, again, I'm very open to how can we actually incorporate this into the curriculum. In terms of the Indigenous health, you know, very aware that we have not basically incorporated a lot of the TRC recommendations yet as a faculty, although that's coming. And I know as a department, it's something that has been on my radar as well. So hoping to address that. Et puis au parle du francophonie, je pense qu'on a beaucoup d'opportunités pour to better explore et pour créer des modules qui sont that are culturally sensitive et puis qu'on peut avoir disponible en anglais et aussi français et peut-être des autres langues aussi. So lots of potential. And by no means are we the experts. So I think that's, again, you know, if you have questions and you're interested and think, or these passion areas, then please do follow up and think about being involved.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I like that, Lindsay. I'm looking at creating some MSK specific teaching sessions that can be done while cycling and running. I love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other
All
questions, concerns? Otherwise, I wish you all a pleasant evening. Thank you for attending, and you know, look forward to your input and your participation. And once again, thank you for your all your efforts during this troubling time, and stay safe. So.
Yeah, thank you everyone for taking the time. I really do appreciate it, because I know this is not priority number one. So, but a little fun stuff to think about, and then some practical stuff too. So let us know what you think would help, especially in your day-to-day interactions with your residents. So, and there will be more to follow. So look forward to reconnecting on webinar number 2.
Great.
Okay, thanks so much, Louise. Merci. Thanks, Jeff.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.